program to increase drug education and awareness. I guess my question is to you. Does the city of Pacific participate in the DARE program?
A DARE officer from Auburn takes care of that.
Okay. Can you think of any kind of a situation or whatnot that we could have someone come over and help Joanne at the youth center? I don't know how often that would be, once a month, once every 2 months, something, just the presence is here and this is the healthy and this is the way type DARE. They had DARE when my kids grew up and then Bellevue dropped it. They said it wasn't working.
Several cities.
So my question is can we try to work to get something for the kids? Because you save one kid and it's well worth every single penny spent.
Okay.
Just one.
I agree, and we'll look into it. We'll talk to John's connection, and then we'll see what Joanne's found with too. Because I really haven't talked to her about that specifically.
Okay, well, would that be something in human services? Where would that
Sure.
fit in?
Yeah, it would fit in with our committee.
Can we put that on the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not a question. No. Really?
Oh, I'm sure we can get.
It's all 33 minutes left here.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, okay. Well.
What are the questions we have from council? Or additions that we'd like to see? Since this is not the last time we're going to see a presentation like this.
Yeah, we'll see another one, but hopefully a little
It's a
bit
good
shorter.
presentation.
A little shorter, yes.
Lots of fun.
Yeah.
And we'll
Next time Lance will be running the whole thing. What happened?
Councilman Rooker.
One thing that's not in here, I see all the goals and objectives, and the only speaking or talk of filling positions is the backfill position that's already budgeted for. Was there going to be any requests for an increase in FTEs next budget cycle for 2016? Or are we going to go with what we got?
We're going with what we got.
Councilman Rooker.
Back to the senior center, I know I brought this up at our technology meeting, and with what Richard talked about, how more seniors are now more tech savvy, I would really like to see Wi-Fi at the senior center.
And I'm going to follow up on that when we get, even though the Wi-Fi is working now, we still haven't got that part, the switch that's supposed to come for $2,000. I know. How many months is it now? Anyway, that ship has sailed, right? But we're going to get that, and hopefully that'll extend the range. Remember I talked to you about that? I'm going to find out if it will, because I think it has to. I mean, it has to do something positive for that much money. Yeah. So, because I know that Darcy talked to us about it, and Leanne was like, no, we're not going to spend any more money to put it over there. But now that we have a switch coming, that should enhance the system, I'm hoping.
Okay.
So we'll look into that for you.
Councilman Steiger.
We just talked about not adding any FTEs. We added extra police officer and as a traffic officer, and he has far exceeded the revenues to support that position. And I am going to request that we add another police officer and that we fill the larger positions, and that way we can have more enforcement on drugs. We have a drug problem in this town and it's growing, and we need to have additional people to be able to work on our drug. And we have the revenues, the officer we added is paying for itself, so we can add another officer in 2016 and have some additional enforcement for drug enforcement.
Councilman McGregor.
Don, how do you feel about that? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about that? Do you think there's a need?
I'd like to have it. But
A drug enforcement officer.
Do you think that we need a drug enforcement officer full time?
no,
wait for one person?
What we did years ago, when we had 12 commission people, was that we sent a detective to the Valley Narcotics enforcement team, and then if we had a problem, they came to us and we infiltrated the city. But our guy would also go to other agencies.
Was he full-time just for drugs? How effective,
Go ahead.
how effective was it for the city to have someone specifically on drugs? Well, not on drugs, but dealing with drugs. Working with the issue of drugs.
It's nice to have a drug task force.
Okay.
But that's part of the coalition though, too, isn't it? No?
So is this something that you would like to see, or something that you think would benefit the city greatly? Your department?
Yes, I do. We benefited a lot from having drug task force. Coalition is the one thing that we don't get involved in because it's so time consuming, and we pay attention to major crimes, I guess.
How long has it been since you've had a drug enforcement officer?
With my cash box, well, I guess 7, 8 years ago.
Now, in your opinion, or in statistics, how much has, the problem changed since letting go of this person or this position?
I can't answer that. I mean, we always have drugs. You know, I don't know what the answer is for that.
You haven't noticed a big rise in 8 years in the time,
Constant.
or is that just the time?
Just a constant.
Oh, okay.
Drugs are constant.
And I live under a rock, so do we have a lot of drugs in the city?
I don't think any more than any other place in North Pierce County or South King County, but there's a lot.
Is there a lot? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I think, to kind of follow up on that, if we're gonna consider this, I need more than anecdotal. Yes, it's gone up, yes, it's inconsistent, like, I need to see numbers.
Can we get them?
I don't know. I have to go to the task force and find out what they have been doing.
Would this be something that we would discuss at a public safety meeting?
You could.
I think so.
Can we put this on the next agenda?
Councilor Steiger.
Well, I wasn't, with my statement, I wasn't putting 100% time drug enforcement on it. But by adding another officer, we would have more officers available that could concentrate on the drug situation in town.
Understood. But if we're looking at spending $200,000 on an officer and a sergeant, personally, I need numbers somewhere. I can't just say, crime's up, let's hire 2 cops.
Did you
We're not
say,
hiring 2, I'm adding 1.
But you're saying,
Fill the
sergeant
sergeant
position.
position
From within.
within,
Okay,
and adding a new officer so that way we can concentrate with using the officers we got, using the detectives we got, with additional officers, we have more time to concentrate on the drug enforcement. Now, we could have 1 officer that possibly could 50% of his time be in drugs, but I mean, just to shore up our enforcement over there, so we have time to pursue the drug situation. We do not have time to pursue it now. John can't give us any specs and whatever, because it really hasn't been concentrated on. I mean, when it's a situation that a neighbor's calling, drugs going on, the house next door, traffic all night, whatever, okay, we come in and we concentrate on that because that's a particular complaint. But we don't concentrate on the other situations, and we don't concentrate on, it was over at AM/PM the other day, and there were 3 guys standing right there in front of the store smoking marijuana right right there on the premises, right in front of the AMPM. With it.
No.
So, it sounds like the Public Safety Committee can take this back and bring a recommendation with some supporting
So,
recommendations.
I'll just let council know, if you wanna add a sergeant, we'll eliminate the lieutenant position because, the city can't afford two administrators.
Well, I will oppose that also.
I thought we were looking for maybe another officer, not a sergeant.
He wants two sergeants, a lieutenant, and a public safety director,
I'm gonna fill that.
and police. And I'm just gonna tell you right now that the city can't afford two administrators in that police department.
Two.
Lieutenant as an administrator, along with the public safety director as an administrator.
I guess I'd have to see that out in writing, because that doesn't, what you just said doesn't make sense. Understanding chain of command and a paramilitary organization, what you just said doesn't even make sense to me.
If I was to hire a sergeant, I would eliminate the lieutenant's position.
Yeah, I don't understand why you would do that.
As administrator. I think the disconnect is that in your organization and in your past, a lieutenant's not an administrative position, it's a supervisor.
The supervisor.
So a supervisor of
of-
two sergeants.
Yes. That's not
That
uncommon.
doesn't make sense to me to have the size of budget that we have and the size of police department that we have to spend that much money on overhead.
It's all about span of control.
True. But there's also, and I've looked at several cities on how this works, and we've had this conversation many times, John and I have. Public safety director, two sergeant officers. A police chief, sergeant officer. The sergeants would report to the chief, he oversees them, the sergeants oversee the officers. We have 7 officers.
I mean, if we
We
get.
don't need 4 supervisors.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'd have to see comparables and things like that. I get where Clint's coming from the standpoint of having more enforcement on the streets. Because he didn't mention it this time, but he was talking about, weights and measures, someone that could enforce that, being able to enforce that more, because we do see deterioration on our streets, and, there's, anytime someone can haul more and get away with it, they're making more money, and we're receiving the impact from it, and if we can enforce things in those areas, to bring things back into scale, because our streets are designed for certain weights of certain vehicles, and we can make sure that people are doing things right and safely, then we won't have that deterioration or destruction of our infrastructure. So there's a lot of benefits that come from the extra officer, and I guess what I've heard with the history of the city is that we're still not at a staffing level that we once were 10 years ago. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
So I don't understand how you can go 10 years into the future, increase your population, and have less officers available to enforce the law. So
Cost. That's what's happened, cost has been up a lot for, I've been in many cities where they've cut staff, not on regular staff, but on public safety, because the cost of fielding officers is a lot more now than it was 10 years ago, unfortunately. Like, the cost of a sergeant, $200,000 now. It wasn't that 5 years ago, it was like 120.
And John, didn't we have something with the coalition around weights and measures? I thought Black Diamond had a weights and measures officer, or we were contacted with State Patrol.
They did, and they don't have that anymore. They cut that. The only one Mike does.
So maybe that's an opportunity for a coalition.
yeah, consortium style service. I mean, I think it's worth debating the issue, the merits, looking at the budget, and then the biggest thing for me is determining, the economy of scale. Will we get the return on the investment, and that's the key, and I think that's your key too, and that's, you're talking about supervisory. I understand the importance of competent supervision in the ranks gets you that return on investment, and you shouldn't take creating those positions lightly, but at the same time, if they're done correctly with the right people in those positions and hold them accountable, they'll hold their people accountable, and I think we'll end up with a much better service in the process. But again, it's an economy of scale, and we gotta look at the budget and determine if it works. So, I don't take it lightly, I'm just...
And to your point, Councilmember King, and that's what I'm looking at, I would rather have more officers on the street, out patrolling and, taking care of our citizens and worry about the top things. You know, as long as it was an equal distribution, and
But there are-
that's exactly what I'm looking at.
But there are key duties or key functions that people in supervisory positions perform, and more so in police than in fire.
Correct, and we've sat down, John and I have sat down many times and discussed this.
Councilman Irving.
I just want to verify that I didn't mishear you. The officer that we hired recently,
Yes.
did you not say he's already paid for it, he's paying for himself?
Well, we've seen the education, traffic education that people have had to go through. We haven't seen the money yet, but we will. I know
Okay.
that, I know we will eventually.
Okay.
So, but I haven't seen it yet. When I do, I'll let you know if he's paid for himself. But I imagine it's gonna take 6 months
But
longer.
I wouldn't count that as a revenue source.
not-
No, I'm
Yeah,
not counting
right.
it as a revenue
Yeah,
source.
we don't look at it that way anyway.
But, no, that makes me look bad, but.
Yeah, speed trap down, right?
Okay, so if this officer pays for himself, which we're not saying he is, into, what Clint says holds a lot of weight as far as we would have the funds to hire an additional officer.
Well,
Am I correct in saying that? That's,
however, as you recall, this officer was put in the budget because we thought, not that he would pay for himself, but that what he would promote would pay for itself. Safety in the community and driving, yes, you'll get tickets because people will still drive fast and whatever. So let's just say it was a 1-for-1, which we don't know that it will be, but based on past history, we can kind of guess that it will. That doesn't mean the next officer's paid for. I mean, that's still another $200,000 that's not in the budget for a sergeant. So however you look at it, that is something
we
that...
do not pay a sergeant $200,000.
Well, benefits, yes, we do. We're in the top tier of sergeant pay. For our sergeant and our lieutenant, we blow everybody else out of the water.
Can you show me an exact list?
I will give you the comparables.
No,
Our
what I
attorney
want
compares.
actually is I want a breakdown of officers, sergeants,
We got it.
all of it.
I have it. Because the union, I had to do it for the union.
Right, I would really like to see that.
Sure.
I mean, not like in 7 minutes, but.
Yes, but, you know.
I think this is a good discussion for the public safety
Yes.
committee to bring back to the rest of the council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
We can argue about it longer though.
I've only got 16 minutes and I turn it over.
Any more time talking.
Stop it up.
He's ready.
Call me and we can argue in private, it's fine. What other questions does council have? Josh is awfully quiet tonight.
Yeah, what's under that?
Council Buchanan.
Not a question, but a comment, just because I probably won't be able to report the minutes at our next meeting from the finance committee meeting, since I won't be here. But there was discussion about the maintenance worker 1 position, backfilling that position, and looking at the possibility of possibly seeking the maintenance worker 2, which is the next step up, maybe bringing someone in with all the training and qualifications already in hand. Yeah, we'll be paying more in wages, but there's the possibility that, you know, you could be spending double or triple what he'd be walking in the door with in training in that first year and a half than what you'd be paying in wages. And so I just wanted to make council aware of that and possibly consider that, and even have the mayor have extensive discussions with Lance to determine if that's a more viable option than bringing in an entry-level worker. Especially in a city our size, it's better to have that experience on hand immediately than trying to train them up too, because our experience is then they go somewhere else.
So can I ask you a question on that, Councilmember King? I was under the impression when Lance and I spoke after your last meeting that it was decided in the finance committee, or it was discussed to go ahead and repost the maintenance 1 for October. It was the discussion that came out of that meeting. I hadn't heard anything
If
about
it was
looking at number
feasible
two.
financially with the
Right.
budget to go ahead and do it.
Was that from the Public Works one?
No, it's from finance committee
Okay.
when he came to the.
We discussed it, we didn't make any
Yeah.
decisions.
He was
or
there.
make
He
any
was under the impression
recommendations.
that
It
it
was-
looked like it was feasible October
It would be,
Well,
Lance.
we were going to, yeah, that's what we talked about for the one, but then when we were talking about the two,
Yeah, I
it was-
hadn't heard that part of it.
Right, and that's where Lance was there and we hadn't brought it to you. We're gonna do that tomorrow, but obviously now. So the two would take more time to see how that would fit in, but we might wait and hire that person until January.
Back in here in a second.
okay.
Anything else?
So I'll just gotta go get some.
Okay. So, yeah, that's still to be determined as far as would the cost
Okay.
outweigh the benefits or not.
Okay, well, with him not being here, I just wanted to ask that. I was under
Sure.
the impression that was part of the discussion, that it looked like we would be able to repost the maintenance one for October.
Based on the information that we got from the fact that we didn't, hire 2 temporary employees this year because we were only able to fill 1 position, based on the interest that was brought in.
We had 2 on that.
Okay, but, so we saved, so we had money budgeted for that. The maintenance worker 1 left 6 months before the end of the year, so we're using part of that money to fund the engineer's position for the last part of the year. And that we've been assured that the revenue supports having the engineer full-time, and that the benefit and the division of labor and all of the cost-benefit analysis of the work that he'll perform next year makes it more cost-effective to have him full-time next year, and there's money in the budget to do that, and there's going to be a tremendous benefit by having the engineer position staff. And there was still room in our budget this year to go ahead and fill the maintenance
Okay.
worker 1 for the last 2 months of the year.
Sure.
And if
Okay.
that works, our suggestion is that we should, as a city, consider going ahead and filling that position, but then look at the possibility of looking at a maintenance worker 2, who comes in with all the skills and qualifications. And the benefit of that is you might bring someone in that has a skill that none of our people have, but is a skill that we need as a city. And one area might be our stormwater.
Right.
So
Right.
there could be some benefit to looking in that direction rather than bringing someone in and trying to train them up, because the cost of getting them to level 2, I think would far exceed the cost of bringing someone in with the wage increase that they would be receiving. And I think we would, as a city, might see immediate benefits of having that position, and I think we should seriously consider that option, especially since I think we did list the maintenance worker 1, and we didn't get any qualified candidates
Right.
to apply.
That's a good
So
point.
we might have a better chance of getting a maintenance worker 2, especially if we were to advertise it before Christmas. Someone looking to make a move could do so before the holidays with reasonable assurance that they'll have gainful employment through the holidays. And so there are some significant benefits of looking at both options, and then, I trust that staff and the mayor can come to a decision that's gonna benefit the city as a whole. So I just wanted to plant the seed, have food for thought, make sure everyone's, keeping an open mind and looking at benefits in other directions, because sometimes we get stuck in, having to bring in people at the lowest levels and pay them the least amount of money, when there could be benefits of bringing someone in. Even though they're a union employee and they're down at the bottom, or they're not in a supervisory position, you can gain a lot of times just as much at those levels, by hiring the positions you need or could use as you do when you hire a manager, so.
Well, and I appreciate those comments, Councilmember Cave, and I look forward to having a conversation with Lance on that. I appreciate that. And you mentioned something too that I would like to just add briefly, as far as the engineer position and being full-time next year. And if you recall, in Jack's report, we have a ton of stuff, and now having the engineer full-time next year, we're gonna be able to get a lot of help on completing a lot of the stuff that needs to be done to the comp plan updates and all of that. We'll have the additional help. Otherwise, we are probably gonna be looking at professional services, outsourcing that. And I also see a decrease in our AHDL, that we do professional by having him here full-time too. So I don't want
and
need
the
to be
cost
taking
of
it to
holding
that
up
maintenance.
projects too.
Yeah.
I mean, having the
Right.
engineer available
Right.
immediately when something comes up. I mean, I think that's why
It's a
as a
huge
council,
benefit.
we all unanimously voted for it, but Clint did bring up some issues on funding and so we as finance, looked into it just to satisfy the questions he had, and we can come away, knowing that not only is there money in the budget for that position, but that we could go ahead and fill the maintenance worker one before the end of the year if we chose to. But then we got into the discussion of if we have skill sets that we need, and if we can get them by hiring a maintenance worker too, we could still send someone out because we want to cross-train people to continue to get the training, but right now we can only afford to send one person to get the training, and then if that person leaves, then we're without that skill set again. So if we can bring someone in and have at least two people, with a set of skills, if you lose one, you're not out completely. So, and that's the consideration I would like to see staff and the mayor give when looking at filling these positions.
Perfect, thank you.
Just one overall, and I realize all the numbers are preliminary, how confident are you that the projected increases in revenue are sustainable?
Well, I'm confident because I looked at some of the one-time revenue shots we got this year. For instance, we got $42,000 from FEMA on the storm that happened in 2012 at the beginning of the year. We didn't anticipate getting that at all. It was, so that's not going to be there next year. If we get the grant for the senior center, it's $106,000 this year. It's not going to be there next year. So I looked at these numbers and I said, okay, I got to throw them out. But I know that we're going to get more on B&O, and I also know that we're going to get marginally more on real estate, the property taxes and sales tax has gone up. So I looked at those and I said, so if we get the same sales tax I budgeted for this year of maybe $10,000 more, how would that look? And that's how I built the budget for the general fund. And then I also increased a little bit the court side because of collections of having more tickets being written and all the enforcement that goes with that. And I think that, so when I looked at the bottom line, I said, okay, this looks too good. I got to find that there's more expenses I can put in to balance it out. Because right now it's positive by $80,000. Last year when I started, that wasn't true, but this year's been such an increase. So I'm going back to comparing against what I budgeted for this year now, what we've really received. And that's really, I think that's very conservative. And so if things stay the same with the economy, basically, I see us growing in that area. Just a little bit, but we've minus the $150,000 for those two one-shot items, and I feel like, it looks good. I mean, I looked at the numbers, and then I looked at the expenses. I found some areas in the expenses that need to be jacked up a little bit. Haven't got a chance to do that yet when I looked at it today, but I still feel like we're going to be able to balance the general fund, and so that means, for all the police decisions that have been made, for all of the community services, those are all general fund expenses. So I feel like I'm going to increase expenses in the general fund just to see where that leaves us, but I feel confident in the revenues because the last few years have been consistent to what I've expected, even more so. And so that part I feel confident about. The part that concerns me is only a 2% raise for the utilities. This sewer is just, it continues to be, since I've been here, when I got here it was negative, and so we got a small increase that one year, and then it's kept up, and then the price went back up by King County, and other prices, of course, went up, labor, and so those are the ones I want to look at hard when Lance is back these next few weeks, to come back to council and say, okay, this will work, but we're doing this rate study to find out what we may need to do. In those areas, and I feel confident with the numbers I know from the police union contract, but the other union contract is close, so I feel pretty confident with those two also, but I would like to get them done. I have no confidence what we're going to get back from cost increases in benefits. I've heard it's all across the board. First year I was here, it was 0% for the administrative, and it was 4 or 5%, but now I'm hearing 20% from some people. So I'd like to know that now. I'd like to be able to look in the future and say, okay, this is what that is. I feel a lot better. So then, because that could be a surprise, and so we got to go into October, November saying, okay, when are we going to find that out? Usually you find it out about March. Otherwise, those revenues I feel very confident in.
Nothing second.
Other thing to bear in mind is with Stewart being completed and with Valentine being completed, we should be attracting more revenue, other businesses moving in, or businesses that are there now increasing their, services and stuff. So we will increase revenue out of the Pierce County area.
So one thing that I noticed in the community development side of it, I believe, we were looking at doing a study on available ground to build on still within the city.
Buildable land study.
Buildable land study. Do we know what our vacancy rate is on the current industrial and commercial complexes? So that if we, as Clint says, we're doing the improvements in the area where most of these buildings set, you know, if there's no vacancies, we might not see much of a bump, but if there are, then we should. Do we know what our vacancy rates are?
No, and the other thing about the buildable land survey is also whether the piece of property is being underutilized also. So there's two facets of it, and I don't have a sense of that right now.
Okay.
Jack, how can we get a sense of that? I mean, is this tied into studies we're working on, or?
Well, there's some information. I've been talking with Sumner at Pierce County as part of the OFM. Well, we have to report to OFM our residential building, see how much more residential we may have. So there's some information there we can get from that's Office of Financial Management, but there's some other information regarding businesses that we can get through the Office of Financial Management through Pierce County. So I'll be looking into that. Typically with a buildable land survey, you figure out what is out there, what's vacant, and what's underutilized, and then you just, once you have that updated, you just keep it updated per year as new development comes in. So, but the last time it has really been done, updated to was 2007, so there's a gap, there's an 8-year gap right now, so that we have to backfill.
Right. The nice thing about buildable land survey is we determine what the potential is for us to bring in to, you know, something that's sitting empty right now. You put a concrete filter on it, now suddenly you've got increase in property tax revenue, and you move a business in, you get a B&O tax out of it. And if it's a commercial business, you can get a sales tax out of it. But, you know, I guess my biggest question wasn't so much the vacancy rate of the land as the vacancy rate of the actual structures that are in existence now.
Yeah, and that's a hard one to pull in.
Okay. Because that'll help determine whether building will take place. If you already have something someone can use, they're not as prone to come in and build something new. They're going to start filling up until there's a demand to increase the building in the area.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's going to be part of our discussions with the comprehensive plan update, and also with zoning code updates. Any other comments from the council? Richard, do you have anything else for us?
No, we just have a lot, from what the council said tonight, I've got a lot of action items. I'm sure the mayor has some too. So we will be working on that for our next meeting, which I don't think, if we do have one like this, it will probably be in October. We have a lot of work to do in September to gather the information for you. And I think you'll be pleased that it'll be comprehensive and that we'll be ready to add it to the budget as is determined by the mayor and the council. Looking at the numbers, looking at, you know, the positives and the negatives of both sides. We've got a lot of questions, and we're going to do our best to answer them in the next month. I know that with the committee's work, Vic brought it up about, we discussed about going to a 2. We also talked about the consortium service and how could that will benefit small cities around us. And we talked to a member of Milton, and he had some ideas, and so we're going to follow that up as well. I don't know that that'll help us this year, but certainly looking forward in the future, it definitely will be something that could benefit all of us in this area. So that's all I have. I just wanted you to be thinking about, you know, I mean, you're getting down into the things that are important to you, and then we tie that into how does this benefit the city of Pacific, and we'll do that with the best we can. If you guys come up with ideas in the if you wanted to say no.
No, I'm good. Thank you guys for being with me.
Yeah, I would appreciate it.
Well, since we're getting paid, we can.